Welcome to the 2021-2022 school year. My name is Brad Judarski. I'm the Oshkosh West Activities Coordinator, and I'll be guiding you through this year's online co-curricular handbook presentation. Be sure to have your Oshkosh Area School District co-curricular handbook with you during this presentation so that you can follow along. Remember, parents and student athletes, if you have a question about anything found within the OESD co-curricular handbook or the WIAA rules and regulations, please be sure to contact me for additional clarification. Remember, students, competing in athletics is a privilege, not a right. You are a student athlete and academics come first. You must be doing the job in the classroom in order to be able to participate and compete in your athletic participation. The Oshkosh West Athletic Department has a vision statement. It is to educate, inspire, and shape the next generation of leaders through commitment, competition, and service to the team, our school, and our community. The Oshkosh West Athletic Department also has some core values. Our vision statement and core values guide us in all of our decision making. Number one, do the right thing. Have integrity and honesty in thoughts, actions, and words. 2, strive for greatness. Excellence in academics, athletics, and character. 3, lead with the purpose, selfless commitment to team goals. 4, promote the Wildcat culture. Have pride in yourself, your team, and the school. And 5, raise the bar. Inspire others to be their best. Regarding our athletic department core values, we have a Wildcat creed that we challenge all of our student athletes, parents, and coaches to live the creed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're going to challenge you to be an 11, which is to do the right thing all of the time. Lead with the purpose by setting the example and promote the Wildcat culture. Show your Wildcat pride. We have an emphasis of weight training and athletic participation. We have a common program for all sports tailored to each individual program's needs. Again, our weight training program helps us strive for greatness through year-round effort. It helps us raise the bar by encouraging others, and it allows us to lead with a purpose by setting the example. Ascension Sports Medicine provides athletic training services for Oshkosh West High School. We are extremely fortunate to have 3 outstanding licensed athletic trainers at Oshkosh West: Tyler Van Sistine, Dan Gary, and Travis Herring. Their email address and cell phone numbers are found on this slide. If you are ever in need of athletic training assistance, please be sure to report to the athletic training room or contact one of our athletic trainers, as they are here to help you in any way needed. The next couple of slides are going to deal with some athletic training information. Again, Ascension Health System provides our athletic trainers, and they have coverage during after-school hours and at different sporting events. The athletic training room hours are daily from 3 to 6 p.m., and the licensed athletic trainers practice under the direction and in collaboration with physicians and other healthcare professionals. They evaluate and treat injuries and provide rehab to the injured. They provide immediate care in the event of a game injury, and as needed, they will provide physician referral if necessary and will communicate with the parents and coaching staff about this process. As everyone is fully aware, we're in the midst of a COVID pandemic, and the district has shared information regarding this year's COVID protocols. Again, we are hoping to return to a new normal this school year with participation in athletics. Be sure to familiarize yourself with the district's COVID protocols that are in place. Remember, if you are ill or don't feel well, don't come to school or to athletic practices or competitions. Contact the school nurse's office for additional guidance. And if you do test positive for COVID, you will need to be cleared by a medical professional to return to participation in athletics. Depending on the severity of symptoms, you may have to follow a return to play protocol before you are cleared for full athletic participation. Remember, we all need to work together to keep everyone safe and to allow our programs to continue moving forward with seasons. Again, if you don't feel well, I can't emphasize this enough, don't come to school, don't come to your athletic practice or competition. And be sure to familiarize yourself with this year's district COVID protocols. We'll now talk about concussions. A concussion is a brain injury, and all concussions are serious. Concussions can be serious injuries with fatal consequences if not evaluated and treated properly. All concussions require an assessment and individualized treatment recommendations. Concussions can occur in any sport that can be caused by a direct blow to the head or an injury to the body resulting in an indirect force to the head. Any suspected concussion should be referred to the licensed athletic trainers. Concussions are a traumatic brain injury that impairs the brain's ability to carry out normal functions. There are many varied symptoms that can describe a concussion, and not all are visible. Some symptoms include headaches, dizziness, confusion, nausea, light and sound sensitivity, difficulty concentrating, memory loss, feeling slowed down, and personality changes can all be indicators of a possible head injury. The licensed athletic trainers will perform pre-season neurocognitive concussion testing to get a baseline of the athlete's neurological functions. All freshmen and juniors will be tested, and anyone who didn't take the test last year or is new to the school will be tested. Should the athlete sustain a suspected concussion, this pre-evaluation can be utilized by a physician to help determine the proper course of treatment for return to play. Only contact sports are tested. Any non-contact sport athlete may be tested upon request of the licensed athletic trainers. Non-contact impact sports are swimming, cross country, tennis, track, and golf. Parents and coaching staff will be contacted in the case of a suspected concussion. Parents will be directly notified and an informational sheet will be sent home. Athletes should be seen as soon as possible by the athletic trainer, then referred to a physician for further evaluation. All athletes will be kept out of all practices and activities while presenting any symptoms. They will see the licensed athletic trainer daily to track symptoms. When the athlete is asymptomatic, the parents will need a physician's clearance for return to practice and play. Once cleared by the physician, the licensed athletic trainers will run the athlete through a gradual return to play protocol. This process involves a reintroduction of simple cardio, progressing to longer durations of cardio, to strength training, to limited practice conditions, a full practice, and then full return to practice and play status. Coaches are instructed to use the following procedure with student athletes and concussions. When in doubt, sit them out. Parents and athletes are required to turn in a signed concussion information sheet once per school year before they can participate in any sport, and this can be done through our new online activity and athletic registration process through Infinite Campus. Additional information on concussions can be found at the WIAA website below. Also, the WIAA provides concussion insurance for all member schools. This insurance is secondary to a family's primary insurance, and information is available from the athletic trainers regarding the WIAA concussion insurance. Regarding pre-existing medical conditions, it is very important the licensed athletic trainers and coaching staff are notified by the parents and athletes about any prior or current health conditions. Examples would be diabetes, asthma, allergy and allergic reactions, heart conditions, or any condition that could impact the athlete's personal safety during play. If an athlete carries an inhaler or EpiPen, make sure the coaching staff and teammates are made aware of this and where to find it in case of an emergency. Hydration. Again, depending on which season you participate, hydration can be a significant issue. Athletes should consume at least 16 to 20 ounces of water 2 hours before practice and at least 8 ounces in the 15 minutes prior to practice beginning. Athletes should regularly consume water during breaks in practice, even if they do not feel thirsty. 48 ounces of water can be taken in during the course of an hour of strenuous practice. After exercise, for every pound of water lost, athletes need to ingest 16 to 20 ounces of water. That is 1 bottle of water for every pound lost. Regarding physicals this year, in order to be valid for participation in athletics, a physical must be dated on or after April 1 of 2020 or later to be valid for this school year. I also want to make you aware of the WIAA banned substance list, which can be found in the appendix of the co-curricular handbook. I'm going to refer you to that section at this time. Keep in mind that the WIAA has a banned substance list that is enforceable year-round on a 12-month basis. Banned substances athletes should not use. They are drugs that are illegal or could be harmful if taken in excess amount. Possession and/or use violates the WIAA Athletic Code of Conduct. Discouraged substance dietary supplements are poorly regulated. Supplemental products can contain banned ingredients without being on labels or become contaminated with banned ingredients during manufacturing. Schools and coaches may not provide or allow discouraged items in connection to a school's program. There also is a list of permissible supplements. When in doubt, ask your doctor if you should be taking any type of supplement, and be sure before you do, you reference the WIAA Performance Enhancing and Banned Substance list to make sure you're not taking something that could be a violation of the district's Code of Conduct. I'm going to ask you to open your Code of Conduct now, and if you start on page 3, you'll see the website for the WIAA. At the website found below in this slide, you can find all of the rules and regulations that the WIAA has regarding participation in athletics. On pages 3 and 4 of the handbook, you'll find the items needed for participating in athletics in the Oshkosh Area School District. A student athlete will need a valid physical on file with the school and potentially an alternate year form depending on the date of physical exam. The athlete and parent will need to complete an agreement of parent-athlete form and have an insurance waiver. They will need to complete the athletic emergency form. They will need to turn in a concussion acknowledgement form, a COVID liability release form, and an OASD COVID acknowledgement form. The district also has an athletic fee that is required for students that do not participate in the district's free and reduced meals program. Please note, the Oshkosh Area School District has gone to an online registration process for participation in athletics using Infinite Campus, and information on how to process this has been shared with parents. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to contact Mr. Jadarski or look at the Oshkosh West High School Athletics tab on the OASD website. For the 21-22 school year, the athletic fee amount is $50 per sport, $100 individual limit per school year, and $175 family limit per school year at the high school level. Fees can be paid online through Infinite Campus or at the school bank. We encourage all parents to pay the athletic fee before the first scheduled contest in a sport in any particular season. Again, if you participate in the district's free and reduced meals program, you can request to have the athletic fee waived. On pages 6 to 8 are the district's academic requirements regarding participation in athletics. Please note, a student must be full-time where the school is responsible for program 100% of the student's day. A student must also be eligible for like or similar awards, privileges, and services as all other students and meet all obligations and responsibilities as other students without exception. In order to be eligible for athletic participation, a student must meet school and DPI requirements defining a full-time student and receive no failing grades, including incompletes, in the most recent grade reporting period. We use the second grade reporting period of first semester, the second grade reporting period of second semester, and second semester grades to determine eligibility. Please keep in mind, if you're a freshman student athlete participating in a fall sport, you will start the year academically eligible. However, don't let that be a pitfall to not start off your academic career at high school on the right foot. Should a student become academically ineligible with one failing grade, he or she will be ineligible for a specific amount of time. If it's a fall sport season, the minimum ineligibility period shall be the lesser of 21 consecutive calendar days, beginning with the date of earliest allowed competition in the sport, or 1/3 of the maximum number of contests or meets allowed in a sport, rounding up if 1/3 results in a fraction. Once classes start, students will be required to follow the weekly academic eligibility grade check process. If a student has one failing grade, he or she may not participate in competitions or performances for a minimum of 7 consecutive school days and nights while the activity is in session. The student may return to competition on the 8th school day, provided the student received at least a 2.5 grade point average in the most recent grade reporting period. However, if that is not the case, the student will need to be passing each and every class, each and every week, by working with the activities coordinator to get a grade sheet to have it signed off by all of their teachers. A student could be eligible one week and ineligible the next, or vice versa. Students who received one failing grade and who had less than a 2.5 grade point average in the most recent grade reporting period, or students who have received more than one failing grade in the most recent grade reporting period, will have a chance to regain academic eligibility at the 5 or 15-week grade period, assuming they are passing each and every one of their classes. If a student has more than one failing grade, they are going to be ineligible for a minimum of 15 consecutive school days and nights while the activity is in session. After the 15th school day, the student will have to be passing each and every one of their classes each and every week in order to be eligible. This will continue on until the next grade check period. For fall student athletes, their ineligible should be the lesser of 21 consecutive calendar days, or 1/3 the maximum number of meets. I need to clarify a statement earlier. Students with one failing grade in fall sports will be ineligible to participate in 1/5 of the scheduled games or meets. Again, rounding up if it results in a fraction. However, student athletes in fall sports with 1F, they will be eligible to participate by the WIA criteria for student athletes with more than one failing grade if the criteria for one failing grade results in a penalty that exceeds the penalty for more than one failing grade. So again, I can't emphasize this enough, students. Be sure to do the job in the classroom first and foremost. I want to talk a little bit about illness, out-of-town travel, and vacation, which are found on the district's co-curricular handbook on pages 8 to 10. A student must be present at all classes on the day of practice or competition to be eligible to participate. Only permission from school administration will permit a student to compete after missing classes. Such examples of excused reasons would be attendance at a funeral, doctor, dentist, or other medical healthcare provider appointment, an absence that is related to a school classroom grade, or the like. Students may not participate in any competition, practice, or performance if they are out ill for any or all of the school day without permission from school administration. If you do contact school administration in the morning and your child's not feeling well and it's not COVID related and we feel that they would be able to come back to school for at least half of the day, many times we may grant the ability to participate in practice or competitions later in the day. However, you must contact school administration in advance in order for that to be considered. Regarding out-of-town travel, on number 7 on page 9, a student who travels to an out-of-town contest with a school team or activity must return with the team. The only exception to this rule is if a student's parent is present, he or she may request that the student returns with the parent. This request must be made in person by the parent to the coach, and the parent will also have to sign off on a form that they are taking their child. Each coach will have a copy of the district transportation form with them, and it is important to note, however, that the coach has the option whether or not to grant permission. Please keep in mind that a parent and a parent only may request to take their child and their child only. They must be there in person and sign the form. Regarding vacation, on page 10, number 11, at the discretion of each coach or advisor, when a student is absent due to being on vacation with his or her family, upon returning to the team, that student will not be allowed to participate in competitions equal to 1/2 of the competitions that the student missed. If the student is absent due to being on vacation with someone other than his or her family, that student will not be allowed to participate in whatever number of competitions were missed, 1 competition for each competition missed. Please note, if a student misses only practices but not competitions due to being on vacation with either family or friends, this may impact playing time for the student upon return from vacation. Students and parents are strongly encouraged to speak with their coach as soon as possible if they will miss any part of their season. Again, communication early as possible is key to be made. Regarding in-district transportation, number 15, the district does not provide transportation for students to any practice sites and some home competition sites. In these situations, it is the responsibility of the student, parent, and or legal guardian to provide their own transportation. On page 11, please note the district's policy regarding use of cameras or other recording devices in locker rooms. Video recording devices of any type used in the locker rooms is not permissible, so please keep that in mind. However, court surveillance video may be used to investigate suspected illegal behavior or behavior by students that violate school rules. Use of such surveillance must be approved by the superintendent. Also, no images of a nude or partially nude person in the locker room may be captured, recorded, or transferred under any circumstances by any individual. I also want to make note of the district's policy regarding club athletic programs. We know many students participate in non-school athletic programming during their high school career, and we're trying to provide guidance for you because of the time commitment and cost associated with those programs. The athletic departments have adopted the following policies for students and parents concerning club athletic programs during a student's high school sports season. For varsity athletes, if a student is on a varsity high school team, the head coach will determine whether or not students will be allowed to practice or participate in a club athletic program during their varsity high school season. If a coach's position is no club athletic participation during the varsity high school season, it is based on the premise that a student's loyalty and allegiance should be to the high school team. For non-varsity athletes, if a student is on a JV or freshman high school team, students will be allowed to participate in club programs during their JV or freshman high school season with the following stipulations. 1. The student and parents need to inform the coach about their intentions as soon as possible. 2. Students will not be allowed to miss a high school scheduled practice or competition for a club athletic practice or competition. Again, in either case of varsity or non-varsity athletes, please communicate with your coach as soon as possible if you're going to have this conflict. Please note the WIA rule concerning non-school participation. It is the philosophy of the WIA that a student owes loyalty and allegiance to the school and team of which he or she is a member during the season of a given sport. Athletes may compete in not more than 2 non-school competitions with school approval during each regular season. Again, the key is with school approval. The contest will not count against the individual maximum for the athlete in the sport. Non-school competition will not be allowed during the respective WIA tournament series in a sport. Also, a student becomes ineligible in a sport for the remainder of the season for not receiving school approval beforehand and/or competing in more than 2 non-school games, meets, or contests in the same sport during the season of practice and competition established by the school. Please note, if you're going to have a request to have non-school competition during any high school season, please talk to your coach as soon as possible about that. On pages 13 to 15 are some of the nuts and bolts regarding the district's co-curricular handbook concerning the code of conduct or behavior expectations. Please note, the code of conduct is observed and must be observed year-round. It is established for the best interest of the students and the team. Participation in activities is not necessarily for the most talented, rather it is for the most talented students who abide by the rules. Please note, in all situations involving possible violations of the code of conduct, administrative discretion will determine whether or not there is an actual violation of the code. A student must refrain from any conduct at any time that would reflect unfavorably on himself, herself, or the school. Conduct which would reflect unfavorably on a student or on the school includes but is not limited to the following. Those are lettered A through S. I want to emphasize a few in particular. Please note letter A, use, possession, buying, or selling of controlled substances, street drugs, illegal drugs, and or performance-enhancing substances, only those listed as banned by the WIAA. Drug paraphernalia, including sale, possession, or use. B, use, possession, or purchase of alcoholic beverages. C, use, possession, or purchase of tobacco in any form. Use of tobacco means to chew or possess any substance containing tobacco, including smokeless tobacco, in the mouth to derive the effects of tobacco, as well as all uses of tobacco, including cigars, cigarettes, pipe tobacco, chewing tobacco, snuff, and other matter or substances that contain tobacco, in addition to papers used to roll cigarettes and or the smoking of electronic vapor or other substitute forms of cigarettes, clove, cigarettes, and any other lighted smoking devices for burning tobacco or any other substances. Criminal offense or a violation of a state statute or city-county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, not to include such violations as traffic, jaywalking, or other similar minor citations. That's letter F. I want to emphasize letter I, knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. In situations where it is noticeably apparent to law enforcement officials that alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia are present, the district's determination will be that the student was knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. Students may be at an establishment which is primarily for eating and may be present at a ceremony type activity such as a wedding. Students may only be present at a bar or tavern if they are with their parents. Letter N, behavior or conduct which reflects unfavorably on a student. Note that is a very vague topic, but are you doing something that is potentially illegal? You know, getting removed from class for not following school rules or being a behavior problem could result in a violation under this area. Letter P, illegal or inappropriate use of the internet and or electronic devices. Note, any posting or communication via social networking websites which disrupts either the educational or athletic environment is unacceptable. This includes, but is not limited to, the consumption of alcohol or the use of illicit drugs or facsimiles, inappropriate sexually oriented material, or activities involving bullying, hazing, or harassment. Note, students, you can and will be held accountable for electronic device communications you make and or social media postings that you have. Letter Q, physical violence or threatening violence against another individual, the school, another entity, or organization. Letter R, hosting a party. Any person who has a gathering at his or her home, property, or personal property where alcohol, tobacco, drugs, or drug paraphernalia are permitted by such person to be used and are brought into the home, property, or personal property may be given a penalty at a higher level. Administrative discretion will determine the length of penalty. Letter S, supplying, bringing alcohol, drugs. Any person who brings, supplies alcohol, tobacco, drugs, or drug paraphernalia to another person or persons may be given a penalty at a higher level. Administrative discretion will determine the length of the penalty. In the event another individual engages in this behavior on behalf of the athlete, there will be a presumption that the other individual acted as an agent of the athlete, and the athlete will receive the same punishment as if the athlete had been the supplier. So please be aware of those types of behavior that reflect unfavorably on a student or the school. Note, regarding our complaint process, students and parents are strongly encouraged to use the self-referral policy. Other complaints or referrals concerning a code violation shall be made in writing and signed by the complainant and/or by law enforcement report and/or by a published written account and/or by other factual, credible means to the activities coordinator or school administration. School administration will consider statements made by students to law enforcement officials which are verbally shared with school administration and are found in a written law enforcement report as factual and truthful statements. If a student, upon questioning by a school official, recants on such statements made to a law enforcement official, the district's position will be that the statements made to the law enforcement official were truthful, and as such, it will be up to the student to convince school administration otherwise. Any student in this situation who makes a statement to a law enforcement official which is determined to violate the district's code of conduct will be ineligible for competition until otherwise determined eligible by school administration. Regarding the penalties for guidelines found on page 15, participation in high school co-curricular activities is a privilege, not a right. Failure to abide by established training rules will result in withdrawal of the privilege to participate. For any violation, the following guidelines are established, setting forth the minimum penalty that will be imposed. Code of conduct violations are cumulative during a student's high school career unless otherwise stated. For example, a first offense in alcohol would cause a second penalty offense for the second violation, even if it's not alcohol related, if it's in the appropriate category. In addition, the penalty provisions set forth may adversely affect school and/or conference awards. When a violation occurs, the suspension will be served in a WIA sport in which the student participated in last, or the next WIA sport in which the student participates. A student who participates in a WIA sport and receives a code of conduct or behavioral offense must serve the suspension in a WIAA sport. In the case of serving a suspension in the next WIA sport, a student participates, provided they have never participated in that WIA sport before, requires permission from both the activities coordinator and head coach of the new sport. Also, a student may not join a sport to serve a suspension after the first scheduled contest in that sport has taken place. The student must complete that season in good standing as outlined by both the activities coordinator and head coach for the suspension to be served. Failure to meet the in good standing requirement results in the student not receiving any credit for time served and having to serve the entire suspension again in the next sport in which the student participates. Also, when any suspension results in a fraction, the number shall be rounded up to the next whole number. This is a minimum penalty and may not be reduced by any other provision of the school code. Any portion of a suspension not completed during the current season will carry over to the next sport or season. So on page 17, you'll see the penalties for code of conduct violations without a self-referral, items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For those violations, a first violation results in suspension for 25% of the regular season. The student must also complete a student assistance program or other approved educational program. Note, for first-time offenders in the area of knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and/or drug paraphernalia, suspension will be for 12.5% of the regular season. Note, for second-time offenders in the area of knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and/or drug paraphernalia without any other first-time offense in areas 1 to 9, found above on pages 17 to 18, the suspension will be for 40% of the regular season. Second violations in categories A, 1 through 9, suspension for an entire season. Third violations on those 1 through 9 areas, suspension for 1 full school year. And fourth violations, the student loses the privilege to participate in all co-curricular activities during the remainder of his or her academic career in the district. On page 19, we talk about penalties for violations with self-referral. A self-referral is defined as follows. If a student presents himself or herself to the activities coordinator, his or her head coach, or another school administrator as a person who has violated the code of conduct in the areas numbered 1 to 5 as defined below, that student will have his or her penalty reduced. For this to occur, the student must self-admit no later than the first school day after the violation has occurred, and the information cannot already have been shared with school administration from another source. Administration may grant an extension to the 1 school day provision due to extenuating circumstances. Students and their parents are strongly encouraged to self-report violations of the code of conduct during the summer months to the activities coordinator as soon as possible. So that's the definition of a self-referral. We also have an honesty referral. That is defined as follows. If a student, upon a first questioning by the activities coordinator or other school administrator or head coach, provides truthful information about committing a code of conduct violation in the areas numbered 1 to 5 below, that student will have his or her penalty reduced. For this to occur, the school must be conducting an investigation and not have had a law enforcement report and or other published written account and or by other factual credible means confirming the student had committed a code of conduct violation. On page 20, you'll see the areas previously defined as earlier, 1 through 9, but note, only items 1 through 5 are eligible for the self-referral or honesty referral definition. So, with the self-referral, items number 1 to 5, a first violation would result in suspension for 12.5% of the regular season. The student must also complete an assistance program or similar approved educational program. Note, for the first-time offenders in the area of knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, or drug paraphernalia, suspension for 12.5% of the regular season. And should the student also volunteer to complete an assistance program or approved educational program and time frame permits such participation prior to the completion of a season, the penalty will be reduced to 1 competition. Note, for second-time offenders in the area of knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia without any other first-time offense in areas as defined on 1 through 9 on pages 20 and 21, suspension for 25% of the regular season. And the student must also complete an assistance program or similar approved educational program. Again, being in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia, and not using, consuming, or being in possession of, just being somewhere in the presence of those items is a violation of the district's code of conduct. For second violations under areas 1 through 9, okay, but only those in 1 through 5 that utilize a self-referral, the suspension is for 50% of the season, with also the requirement of a 20-hour community service plan, which must be submitted to the activities coordinator within 5 school days of the violation. The community service hours must be completed prior to eligibility being reinstated. The second requirement is meeting with the school's social worker or district's ATODA coordinator and following through with any recommended course of action. A self-referral For a second violation, can salvage half of a season. A third violation, even with the self-referral, is suspension for 1 full school year. And a fourth violation, the student loses the privilege to participate in all co-curricular activities during the remainder of their academic career. Those are the penalties for a self-referral. Please note on page 22 and 23 and 4, it talks about penalties for an honesty referral. So for sports, penalties for a first violation with an honesty referral is 16.6% of the regular season. The student must also complete an assistance program or similar approved educational program. Note, with an honesty referral for knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and/or drug paraphernalia, suspension for 12.5% of the regular season. Should the student also volunteer to complete a student assistance program or similar approved educational program, and time frame permits such participation prior to the completion of a season, the penalty will be reduced to 2 competitions. Note, for second-time offenders, in the area of knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and/or drug paraphernalia, without any other first-time offenses in those items numbered 1 through 9, which are found on pages 20 and 21, with an honesty referral, suspension for 33% of the regular season. The student must also complete a student assistance program or similar approved educational program. For second violations with an honesty referral, suspension for 60% of the regular season, with the requirement of a 25-hour community service plan. The plan must be submitted to the activities coordinator within 5 school days of the violation, and the community service hours must be completed prior to eligibility being reinstated. And also, 2, meeting with the high school social worker and/or the district's ATODA coordinator and following through with any recommended course of action. A third violation with an honesty referral, suspension will be for 1 full school year. And a fourth violation with an honesty referral, the student loses the privilege to participate in all co-curricular activities during the remainder of his or her academic career in the district. Please note, with our self-referral or honesty referral process, honesty is rewarded. If you truly make a mistake, which we all do, and violate the district's code of conduct, please do the right and responsible thing, turn yourself in, and utilize our self-referral policy. Note, on pages 24 and 25, items number 10 and 15 are offenses which are cumulative within themselves only and apply to all activity categories, including sports participation, that are referenced in the handbook. Please note in particular the following. Number 10, a criminal offense or violation of a city-county ordinance having a statutory counterpart. The significance of the violation will be evaluated and the suspension will be determined based on the severity of the offense. Note the WA rule. Any student charged and/or convicted of a felony shall, upon the filing of felony charges, become ineligible for all further participation until the student has paid his or her debt to society and the courts considered the sentence served. Please note, probation and community service hours would be part of that time frame. Also note the OASD following rule, which could apply in addition to the WI rule. If a student is charged with a felony, the student could lose the right to participate in athletics, activities, and/or clubs for the remainder of their high school career in the district. Regarding a criminal offense or violation of a city-county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, if a student utilizes the self-referral and/or honesty referral option outlined previously in our handbook, his or her suspension may be reduced depending on the severity of the offense for a first or second violation only. However, this excludes all felony charges. Note number 11, physical violence or threatening violence against another individual, the school, another entity or organization. The significance of the violence will be evaluated and the suspension will be determined based on the severity of the offense. However, the suspension will be for a minimum of 12.5% of the season. Acts of harassment, including hazing, please refer to the district's policy. However, the significance of the violation will be evaluated and any suspensions will be determined based on the severity of the offense. Note items 13, which are a violation of student rules as described in the school planner. Number 14, recruitment of student athletes is the position of the Oshkosh Area School District that students respect other students' attendance boundaries. And number 15, illegal or inappropriate use of the internet and or electronic devices. Any posting or communication via social networking websites which disrupts either the educational or athletic environment is unacceptable. Again, those items 10 through 15 are cumulative within themselves only. On pages 25 and 6 are items called behavioral offenses, which are still violations of the district's code of conduct, but which fall in a little bit different category. Please note items 1, insubordination during activity involvement. 2, profanity or obscene gestures during activity involvement. 3, being disqualified from a contest for flagrant or unsportsmanlike conduct. 4, acts of truancy. A student participating in athletics might not be permitted to participate in the next scheduled contest whenever the student is deemed truant as defined by school policy, unless administration grants permission to participate. 5, behavior or conduct which reflects unfavorably on a student. 6, cheating. A first offense during one's high school career. The teacher involved will handle the situation and will make contact with the activities coordinator. A second offense during one's high school career and any additional offenses. The student will be referred for a behavioral offense or code of conduct violation. Note, for any first offense found to be especially serious, administration reserves the right to invoke a second offense consequence. Basically, students, if you're not sure about what is considered acceptable or unacceptable regarding shared group work and or using other sources for work, please be sure to talk to your teacher and find out ahead of time. On page 26, number 7, failure to follow the attendance and behavior rules and guidelines for an individual program set forth by the coach. And 8, failure to be a student in good standing. You must be a student in good standing at each school year checkpoint in order to compete in any co-curricular event. And we defined a student in good standing as you adhere to your high school code of conduct for students, you adhere to your high school attendance and tardy policies, and you have no unserved attentions. Note, only administrative approval will allow a student to compete in co-curricular events if a student is not a student in good standing. Also note on page 26 in the middle of the page, the minimum penalty for code of conduct violations or any behavioral offenses that result in a student being suspended for any portion of a WIA tournament competition is immediate disqualification of the student athlete for the remainder of the total tournament series in that sport. Athletes who are ineligible during the WIA tournament for any reason may not appear in uniform, participate in warm-ups, and may not participate in the awards ceremony. So note, breaking the code of conduct during your WIA tournament series carries with it an additional consequence of being out for the entire tournament series. On pages 27 and 28 is the district's appeal process. Basically, violations of the code of conduct that are reported to the district and where a student is found to be in violation of the code of conduct do have the right to appeal the administration's findings. The appeal must be in writing and within 10 days after notification of a violation is sent. Appeals may only be filed in reference to whether there was a code violation or not. An appeal may not be filed to change a consequence. School administration will make a reasonable attempt to provide an opportunity for an appeal prior to the next scheduled competition, if at all possible. At the conclusion of any appeal, a decision will be made by the appeal committee and presented to the parents, students, and parents. The appeal committee will either uphold or abolish the suspension. Note, while the appeal process is occurring, the penalty for the violation will remain in effect, and the decision by the appeal committee will be final and binding. On pages 28 to 30 is information about the district's position on awards for athletic participation. To qualify for an award, on page 29, the athlete may not be suspended for any alcohol, tobacco, drug paraphernalia, performance-enhancing substance, vandalism, criminal offense, or violation of a city, county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, or other serious offense considered unbecoming of a student athlete. If a student athlete refers to the activities coordinator for a first-time offense in the areas of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, drug paraphernalia, performance-enhancing substances, vandalism, and possibly criminal offense or violation of a city, county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, that athlete may be eligible to receive any school award earned during that season once all obligations concerning the referral have been fulfilled. Note, if a student has not utilized the self-referral option and he or she wants to earn their school award, he or she may apply to earn their school award for a first offense in the areas referenced above by utilizing the following process. 1. A student submits written application to the activities coordinator indicating their desire to earn their school award, and it must include a 15-hour community service plan. 2. Once the application is reviewed and approved, the student may begin serving their community service hours. And 3. Upon successful completion of all community service hours, the student will be provided with the school award they would have earned that season, no matter what point in time that may be. Also note the following Oshkosh Area School District All-Conference Guideline. Any OASD student athlete suspended from participation for an athletic contest due to a code of conduct violation in the areas of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, drug paraphernalia, performance-enhancing substances, vandalism, criminal offense, or violation of a city, county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, or other serious offense considered unbecoming of a student athlete will not be eligible for all-conference recognition in the sport where the suspension is initiated. So again, one's behavior can have an effect on earning athletic awards. Again, students, please make good choices. On page 30 and 31 is the district's communication policy. The athletic departments encourage students, parents, and coaches to open the lines of communication and work together. Coaches are required to operate under an open door policy. However, if there are questions, the parent or student should contact the coach and a meeting can be scheduled during normal business hours. Communication must be carried out by all in a calm, mature, and rational manner. Note, at the end of the day, the desire will be to try to come up with a reasonable or possible solution, but if a solution is not available that meets the satisfaction of the student or parent athlete, we all must agree to move forward and make the best of that situation. We ask that parents help our coaches with communication by encouraging, supporting, and being positive role models at home regarding the decisions of the coaches. Negative approaches to problem solving do nothing but make the environment for all more destructive. So, if you have a question about your child's role in the team, why they maybe didn't make a team, or why they're not playing more, have your student talk to the coach, schedule a time to meet. We encourage the student to do that first and foremost. If after that first meeting you still have questions, follow up with the coach. Ask to have a meeting with the parent, yourself, the athlete, and the coach. And if need be, at that point in time, the activities coordinator or member of school administration would be happy to sit in as well. However, if you contact school administration prior to having a meeting with the coach, you will be directed to first have that communication with the coach. On pages 31 and 32 is information regarding sportsmanship. Please note, spectators are expected to be humble, maintain self-control at all times, and recognize the performance of both teams. Spectators will not be allowed to engage in behavior that endangers the safety of other participants, be allowed to throw anything on the playing surfaces or at other players or coaches. They are not able to participate in taunts, harassing, intimidating, humiliating, degrading, or embarrassing behaviors on officials, coaches, or players. Also, please note the Fox Valley Association expectation regarding parents, guests, and other fans. Note game attendance is a privilege. Be respectful of officials, players, coaches, opposing fans, and facilities. Be a role model. Respect the judgment and strategy of coaches, players, and officials. Remember, be a fan, not a fanatic. Failure to comply with any of the aforementioned rules can result in the spectator being removed from the premise and further disciplined by the WIAA and/or school. On pages 32 and 33, there's information regarding other resources available for student athletes and parents. You'll see the website for the Fox Valley Association at fea.sports. We also have a Fox Valley Association website where all of the school's schedules can be found. That's foxvalleyassociation.org. And at that website, you can sign up for free notifications under the Notify Me link to be informed of any schedule changes that happen via your cell phone and/or email. I strongly encourage you to follow what's going on with Oshkosh West activities by following me on Twitter at OWHS Activities, as I love to provide updates when I'm at events of what's going on at contests and share video footage and other information showing the great things our student athletes are doing. And also note on page 33, the notice of surveillance. The school is using video surveillance, electronic monitoring to observe, monitor, and/or record the behavior and activity of all persons on school property or grounds or participating in school functions. On page 34, note the district's vision and mission statement. Directly after that, you'll see an eligibility overview for athletes, even though it says 2021, that is still applicable for the 21-22 school year. The next section is in regards to the WIAA eligibility bulletin. Please note, just like parents and students are responsible for knowing all of the information found in the district's co-curricular handbook regarding district policies and procedures, students and their parents are responsible for understanding and knowing all of the WIAA rules of eligibility and participation. The High School Eligibility Information Bulletin is meant to be a short, very helpful, and informative document that is kind of like a cheat sheet of some of the more important and major things. I'm going to highlight a few of them. On the first page, under age, a student shall be ineligible for interscholastic competition if he or she reaches his or her 19th birthday before August 1st of any given school year. Note regarding residence, a full-time student is eligible for varsity competition only at the school within whose attendance boundaries his or her parents reside, with additional provisions lettered A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J. So please be aware of all of those. I want to make note of a couple. Letter C. In the event of divorce or legal separation, a student's residence at the beginning of a school year shall determine eligibility, except in situations involving transfer after the 4th consecutive semester. For the purposes of this rule, attendance at one day of school and/or attendance at one athletic practice shall determine beginning of the school year. J. Except in situations involving transfer after a student's 6th consecutive semester, a full-time student whose residence in a school district that does not conform with any provision outlined above shall be eligible for non-varsity competition only. Please note, information regarding transfers. Okay, anytime you transfer schools, it can have an impact on your ability to participate in athletics. You should always contact the athletic director at the school you're currently attending to find out what transferring may mean. I want to make note of some particular stuff regarding transfers. Transferring schools, as I mentioned, anytime may result in restrictions being imposed on eligibility, or in some cases denial. For the purpose of transfer rules, attendance at one day of school and or attendance at one athletic practice shall determine beginning of the school year with these additional provisions. A student who transfers into a school after the 6th consecutive semester following entry into grade 9 shall be ineligible for competition at any level for one calendar year, but may practice unless the transfer is made necessary by total and complete change in residence. The calendar year will be determined from a student's first day of attendance at the new school, meaning just because you're transferring schools, it has to be a necessitated change in order for unrestricted eligibility. B, students entering 9th or 10th grade at the beginning of the school year and who are within the first 4 consecutive semesters of high school will be afforded unrestricted eligibility provided all the rules governing student eligibility are met. C, students entering 11th grade are restricted to non-varsity opportunities for one calendar year. D, students entering 12th grade as transfer students are ineligible to compete at any level for one calendar year but may practice. Letter F, 10th or 11th grade students who transfer after the beginning of the school year and with written consent from both schools directly involved shall be restricted to non-varsity opportunities for one calendar year. G, in the event of divorce or legal separation, whether pending or final, residents at the beginning of the school year shall determine eligibility for students entering 9th and or 10th grade. In situations involving transfer after the 6th consecutive semester following entry into grade 9, the student is ineligible to compete at any level for one calendar year but may practice. Letter H, district policies with respect to intra-district transfer do not supersede WA transfer rules in situations involving post-6th semester transfers. Intra-district transfers occurring after the 6th consecutive semester following entry into grade 9 result in the student being ineligible for competition at any school or any level for one calendar year, but may practice. Note, we are a district with more than one high school, so transferring from north to west or vice versa can in fact have eligibility requirements. Also want to make note of M. No eligibility will be granted for a student whose residence within a school district's attendance boundaries, with or without parents, or whose attendance at a school year has been the result of undue influence, meaning special consideration due to athletic ability or potential on the part of any person, whether or not connected with the school. So please be aware, if you have questions about transfers, please contact Mr. Jadarski. Regarding training and conduct, a student athlete must follow his or her school's code of conduct on a year-round basis. Please note A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. A couple that I want to make note of, I've mentioned letter C regarding felonies. Also, I want to make note of G, any player who in the judgment of an official intentionally spits on, strikes, slaps, kicks, pushes, or aggressively physically contacts an official at any time shall be immediately ineligible for competition a minimum of 90 calendar days from the date of confrontation. In addition, the player is ineligible to compete for the first 25% of the next season. And note, as I mentioned before in this presentation, I, schools and individuals are prohibited during the regular season and the tournament series from practicing for regional, sectional, and or state tournament preparation at sites and facilities hosting WA tournaments. The next section I want to spend a lot of time on and that you really need to make sure you're aware of and read thoroughly is in regard to amateur status. Letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Note, a student may not accept, receive, or direct to another reimbursement in any form of salary, cash, or share of a game or season proceeds for athletic accomplishments, such as being on a winning team, being selected for the varsity team, or being a place winner in an individual event. B, a student athlete may receive a medal, cup, trophy, or plaque from the sponsoring organization regardless of cost. School mementos valued not more than $200, an award valued not more than $100 retail for participation in an athletic contest in a WIAA recognized sport, and may retain non-school competition apparel worn by students as part of the team uniform. That is team uniform only. Letter C, a student athlete may not receive compensation or benefit, directly or indirectly, for the use of name, picture, and or personal appearance as an athlete because of ability, potential, and or performance as an athlete. D, a student athlete may not receive free or reduced rates on equipment, apparel, camps, clinics, instruction, and competitive opportunities that are not identical for any and all interested students, meaning you can't get a discount on a pair of shoes or some clothing because you're a member of a particular sport if any high school student that attends the same school can't get the same discount. E, a student athlete may not be identified with or without permission as an athlete, provide endorsement as an athlete, or appear as an athlete in the promotion of a commercial, advertisement, and or profit-making event, item, plan, or service. Best advice is do not allow your name, likeness, picture to be used for any type of promotional event without first clearing it with the school administration to make sure that you wouldn't be violating WIAA amateur status. And F, a student athlete may not participate in school athletics or in sports activities outside the school under a name other than his or her own. Basically, amateur status violations can be career ending. So if somebody wants to give you something because your team won something, if it's not a trophy, plaque, medal, and you're not sure if you should take it, don't. Contact your coach or myself to find out if you are able to take it. Better to be safe than sorry. Under the sports activities outside of school section, please be sure you're familiar with all of the information found there. As mentioned before, athletes may compete in not more than 2 non-schooled competitions with prior approval during each regular season only, not the WA Tournament Series. WA rules do not prevent athletes from practicing with non-school teams or from receiving private skill instruction during the school season. However, they may not participate officially or unofficially in more than 2 non-school competitions, including scrimmages, without school approval. Note, if you're going to have any outside non-school coaching done or participation, as previously mentioned in this video, have a conversation with your coach to make sure it is going to be allowable by our school policy and then by WA rule. Note, restriction applies to normal non-school games as well as gimmicks, such as reduced numbers competition, 3-on-3 basketball, 6-player soccer, etc., specific skill contests, punt, pass, and kick, free throws, fun runs, etc. Number 3, a student who is a member of a school team during the previous year may not delay reporting for the school team beyond the school's official opening day of practice in order to continue non-school training or competition. Note letter C, a student athlete or his or her parents must pay 100% of the fee for specialized training or instruction, such as camps, clinics, and similar programs. Letter E, a student athlete must not participate in an all-star game or similar contest except for summertime activities. Some postseason all-star activities may be permitted for 12th graders who have completed high school eligibility in a particular sport. Check with your AD to be certain. So again, that's information under sports activities outside of school. If you have questions about anything found within the WA eligibility bulletin or anything regarding WA rules and regulations, please contact Mr. Jadarski. Note something new this year that has come into play in the NCAA that is being addressed right now by the WIA talks about the NCAA name, image, and likeness. Recent changes which allow NCAA athletes to profit from name, image, and likeness do not apply to WIA student athletes. As we begin this school year, the WIA office will provide further guidance for schools to share with students. At this time, student athletes have already begun to receive DMs on their social media accounts from those looking to solicit their business. For now, the most important piece of information for member schools to have is that it is not allowed in education-based athletics and would result in a career-ending violation for a WIA high school student athlete. So again, anything regarding your name, image, and likeness or social media, you cannot make any money or any benefit of, or you can render yourself in violation of WIA amateur status. Any questions regarding that? Contact Mr. Jadarski. Additional appendices in the handbook. We previously talked about the WIA performance enhancing and banned substance list. Please be familiar with that. The next resource is a parent's guide to concussion. As we mentioned, a concussion is a brain injury. It's a very serious thing. Parents and student athletes should never try to hide the fact that they have a concussion. When in doubt, our coaches are instructed to hold you out. And if you have any questions at all about a concussion, please seek out one of our athletic trainers. Note, what are the signs and symptoms of a concussion? Some of those that may be observed by trainers, friends, teachers, parents, or coaches. Someone appearing dazed or stunned. The athlete is confused, forgets plays, is unsure of the game, score, or opponent, moves clumsily, answers questions slowly, loses consciousness, shows behavior or personality changes, can't recall events prior to a hit or recall events after a hit. It is not an all-inclusive list. Note symptoms that many times are reported by athletes concerning a concussion: headache, nausea, balance or dizziness problems, double or fuzzy vision, sensitivity to light or noise, feeling sluggish, feeling foggy or groggy, concentration or memory problems, or confusions. Again, parents and student athletes know the signs and symptoms of a concussion, know the information found within the parent guide, and never try to hide the fact that you may have a concussion. The next informational appendix is information regarding hazing. The National Federation defines hazing as any humiliating or dangerous activity expected of a student to belong to a group, regardless of their willingness to participate. Some practices associated with high school hazing carry the potential for serious bodily harm or even death. Hazing, bullying activities are illegal and not allowed at Oshkosh West. If at any time you feel you've been the victim of hazing or bullying, please contact your coach and or a school administrator for further information and direction. I also want to make note, one of the last appendices is information for parents about the role of parent in sports. Please take the assessment tool honestly. Score yourself by answering the questions 1 through 10 on the scale of 1 through 5. And when you're done, flip over to the back to see how you scored. And if you need some additional work, there are free courses available for parents at the NFHS Learning Center. And that website is found on that NFHS page where the parent self-assessment results page is found. We also have the Oshkosh West Wildcat Creed and the Athletic Department vision statement and core values at the back of the handbook. I also want to spend just a minute to talk about college athletics. Many of our student athletes and or their parents may have goals and aspirations to compete in athletics beyond high school. Depending if you're a Division I or Division II athlete, you'll definitely need to be aware of the NCAA Eligibility Center and what the requirements are to be cleared academically. And I strongly encourage you to work with your guidance counselor if you have aspirations of competing in athletics beyond high school to make sure you're on the right academic track, as there are a number of different course requirements depending on what level of NCAA institution you're looking to attend beyond high school. If you are a transfer student, meaning you're a new student to the Oshkosh Area School District, for the very first time coming from a different district or different high school, please contact me so that we can work through the transfer protocol. My phone number and email are found on this slide. And welcome to Oshkosh West. Regarding locker rooms, student athletes are going to be available to get in their locker rooms again this year unless something changes in regards to COVID. We do supply locks for the varsity locker rooms. Athletes are expected to lock up their valuables. Failure to do so can result in loss. And once your season is over, even if you're continuing on in a season, the very next season, student athletes are expected to clean out their lockers once their season is done, and if they're participating in another season, they'll be issued another locker. Parents, we want you to be familiar with the Oshkosh West Booster Club. It's a great organization that helps raise funds for our athletic programs. They will hopefully have meetings the first Wednesday of each month, beginning here in August, and they provide funding for all of our athletic programs to help purchase many things the school district is not able to provide. There are many different events that happen during the school year that are sponsored by the Booster Club. Most importantly, working concession stand nights when we have home events, and when you get that ask from your sport rep about working one of the concession stand nights, please do your part by stepping up, volunteering your time. It's not very difficult. It's just giving your time, which all of us can do. That's going to conclude the 21-22 OASD Co-Curricular Handbook presentation for student athletes. I wish you all of the best of luck this year competing. Let's all work together to make sure we are able to maintain each and every one of our sporting programs and have all 3 of our seasons. Do your part to stay safe and healthy. Please help all of our other student athletes and coaches to stay safe and healthy. Let's make it a great year. Go Wildcats.